So, good evening. We are now in Baikonur, Kazakhstan for this 24th launch of StarSem, and we are going to launch 6 new Globalstar 2 satellites for our customer Globalstar. As you know, more than 10 years ago, in 1999, StarSem has already launched half of the first generation Globalstar constellation. And now we are launching the second constellation. We already launched twice 6 satellites in 2010, 6 satellites last July. And during this last day, we prepared this new launch with one Soyuz 21A and the Frigate upper stage, and these 6 Globalstar 2 satellites. And it will be another milestone in the life of the veteran Soyuz launch vehicle, because this year a lot of launch vehicles have been launched, a lot of Soyuz launch vehicles, and as you know, we performed 2 launches of Soyuz from French Guiana. The first launch on the 21st of October, and another launch back-to-back after the first one on the 16th of December. And this launch, ST24, will be the last launch of Soyuz this year. And I'll let you look at this new launch, Soyuz 21A Frigate and 6 Globalstar 2 satellites.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome to Baikonur pad number 6 for tonight's launch of Soyuz, the last launch of the year for Arianespace, for StarSem, and for Soyuz. 2011 has been a big year for Arianespace, and we're closing out the year 2011 in style with a launch in between the holidays. Joshua Jampol here will be bringing you all the live play-by-play of liftoff in just about 12 minutes, and, of course, of Soyuz flight until she separates her satellites. The mission in all will last about an hour and 40 minutes. It's the 1784th launch of the legendary launcher, the veteran, as you heard Jean-Yves Le Gall say. Those satellites today, the 6 Globalstar 2s, in the Globalstar company's second-generation constellation. Another launch for the Globalstar 2 series. The first 6 went up on a Soyuz in October last year, and the second batch last July. Soyuz waiting on the pad at this evening hour, coming up on 11 p.m. Baikonur time. A description of tonight's mission and of the 2 passengers coming up. Globalstar was on the first StarSem launch back in 1999. Another launch of Globalstar 2 going to take place next year. And after the second launch from Baikonur, which will be a second METOP, it'll be METOP B, METOP A went up in 2006. After that, Soyuz moves to French Guiana for good. The Globalstar second generation going into low Earth orbit. Back in 2006 is when Globalstar contracted with Thales Alenia Space for the design, manufacture, and delivery of the second generation satellites. They have a design life of 15 years. That's twice the life of the first generation. Weighing each 700 kilos, fitted with 16 transponders from C to S band and 16 receivers from L to C band. The separation coming up later on will be in 2 parts. Satellites 5 and 6, the upper passengers will go first, and then the first 4 about a minute and 40 seconds later. Globalstar Inc., with over 400,000 subscribers, a top provider of mobile satellite voice and data service coverage in more than 120 countries. After liftoff, just a brief look at what's going to happen. The three lower stages of the Soyuz will burn for just under 9 minutes, 8 minutes and 49 seconds to be exact. Then the third stage will separate from the nose module and have a description of all those in just a moment. For now, some pictures of the campaign. We looked a little bit of what's ahead, what's going on prior to tonight. After completion of the assembly, integration, and testing at Thales Arianespace facilities in Rome, the Globalstar satellites came here to Baikonur Airport and the launch campaign began. The campaign comprises, as you know, many activities. During the first weeks, the satellites are in the PPF. That's the Payload Processing Facility. This has a 286-meter high bay for processing the spacecraft, also two 70-square-meter control rooms. After being weighed and tested in the PPF, the satellites are moved. For the second series of operations, they go to what is known as the HPF, Hazardous Processing Facility, to be filled and mounted on their dispenser. They call it hazardous mainly because they're filled with propellant, and this can sometimes be a rather delicate maneuver, delicate operations. The HPF, also with a high bay of 285 square meters and designed for the purpose of spacecraft filling activities and pressurization of the tanks. When these operations are completed, the 6 Globalstars were moved again, mated to the Frigate upper stage and together encapsulated under the fairing. All this comprises what is called the upper composite. And this takes place in another building called the UCIF, Upper Composite Integration Facility. It has a high bay of 587 square meters designed for this purpose. Now, when all that's done, the upper composite, remember, including the satellites, the dispenser, the Frigate upper stage, and the fairing, gets moved again, this time to the assembly facility near the launch pad, where it's mated to the third stage of the Soyuz. That took place 1 week ago, 7 days before launch date is the usual time. This assembly area is also called the MIK, or Site 31. It includes the launch pad, the assembly and integration facilities, you can see there, and some administrative buildings. And following integration, the now complete vehicle is rolled out to the launch pad. But that comes only after a transfer readiness review, which comes 4 days before launch day, therefore 4 days ago. This review ensures that Soyuz and the payload are ready for final launch pad activity and launch. 3 days ago, the fully assembled vehicle was transferred here to the pad and erected in a vertical position. We have some shots of that coming up. In French Guiana, remember, this is done horizontally. That's one of the differences between Soyuz here in Baikonur and in the French Guiana base. Since then, minus 2 days, we had countdown rehearsals for the spacecraft and for Frigate. 10 hours ago, the final countdown began, and system checks on the Soyuz started. And 5 hours ago, system checks began on the Frigate upper stage. All is moving smoothly here. We're in the final moments of the final countdown for the last Soyuz flight of the year. More of the mission in a moment, but for now, the latest news from Arianespace. Arianespace's last launch was another success, with the second Soyuz to fly from French Guiana. On December 16th, Soyuz lifted 6 satellites into orbit, a combined civil and military government mission for the French and Chilean defense departments. It was Arianespace's 7th launch of the year. In 2011, Arianespace orbited 17 payloads from French Guiana. On December 21st, Arianespace signed 16 contracts with providers of various specialized launch operations services at the Guyana Space Center. These contracts, worth 330 million euros and creating 500 jobs, will ensure that the new Soyuz and Vega facilities operate in perfect coordination with the already functioning Ariane 5 complex. The campaign is in its final weeks preparing the first launch of Vega for early next year. The fourth stage, called Avum, has been hoisted into place, and the payloads are being readied in the satellite preparation buildings at the French Guiana Space Base. With Soyuz now in operation, Vega will be the latest addition to the extended Ariane family. The first Ariane 5 launch of 2012 will be a big one. The third ATV, or Automated Transfer Vehicle, the 20-ton cargo ship that will bring much-needed supplies to the International Space Station. After ATV-1 in 2008 and ATV-2 last year, the mission, set for early March, will consolidate Arianespace's role as the indispensable partner for international space projects. While you were watching the news, we had the command for Klucz na start. That's the key on the start. That came at minus 6 minutes and 10 seconds. This heralds the start of the automatic sequence that leads us down to liftoff, the final moments of the final countdown then. Filling of Soyuz started 4 hours ago, 4 hours before liftoff. Then the mobile gantry is removed to begin these final launch operations. Some basic facts about Soyuz: 1,783 launches to her credit. That's a world record. She holds also the world's highest demonstrated reliability rate, close to 99%, and you can't get much better than that. The Frigate upper stage, which was introduced as part of the revamp in 2000, has never failed in flight in the close to 24 missions. Soyuz has been in service since 1957, remember. After the campaign comes the transfer. Take a look at these pictures now. You can see how that's done. Transfer to the pad, we mentioned, took place 3 days ago. You're looking at the bottom of the 4 boosters and the core stage there. Rolls out horizontally, as it has always been done. We mentioned the difference with Soyuz in French Guiana and Baikonur is that change. Soyuz is hoisted vertically out in French Guiana. After she reached the pad, there were countdown rehearsals for the lower 3 stages and for the Frigate upper stage and for the passengers. TSSKB Progress, the Samara Space Center responsible for the design, development, and manufacture of Soyuz's first, second, and third stages, as well as for the fairing. Samara also integrates the launch vehicle stages and carries out flight operations. NPO Lavochkin, responsible for the Frigate upper stage manufacture, integration, and launch operations. 2.5 minutes to go for the final launch of the year. We had a readiness for launch check at minus 5 minutes. There's one every hour, from minus 10 hours down to minus 1 hour and minus 30 minutes. There's one at minus 15, minus 10 minutes, minus 5 minutes, and there'll be another at minus 1 minute. Soyuz checked very carefully before getting the okay to fly. Some other milestones as we near liftoff: the electrical umbilicals on the upper composite were released at minus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. There are electrical umbilicals on the satellites that are released and drop into a metal basket designed for the purpose of retaining them, and electricals for the lower stage block are released in the same fashion. Less than 2 minutes to go now. Final countdown leads to the simultaneous ignition of the central core stage and the boosters, which you saw earlier, followed 20 seconds later by liftoff. The final countdown, different from Ariane's, begins at minus 45 seconds with the gantry withdrawal. We should be able to see that. That's always a very exciting moment. Then at minus 40 seconds, Soyuz is autonomous as power has passed from the ground to the onboard computers in the vehicle equipment bay. Coming up on the 1 minute mark. At minus 25 seconds begins the actual ignition sequence. What happens is from minus 17 seconds down to minus 6, the engines are tested. The ignition sequence comes in 3 stages. Minus 15 seconds is the first controlled ignition at a weak pressure, a minimum pressure. Minus 7 seconds is the second at an intermediate pressure, about 50% they say. This is to monitor the engine's performance while still on the pad, and there goes the gantry. We're ready to go. At minus 3 seconds, order is given for the third and final phase. That's full throttle for liftoff. So watch for all that. we'll let you watch the final seconds before liftoff of Soyuz and Globalstar, and we'll be back once Soyuz has begun her mission. Enjoy the launch, everyone. Soyuz lifting off perfectly from Baikonur, beginning mission number 1784, or last of the year, and the last Arianespace mission of 2000, leaving the empty pad behind, as you can see. Some nice shots, albeit brief. We lost Soyuz into the low clouds over Baikonur, but all is well as she begins her mission. 300 tons, roughly, leaving the Earth at liftoff. The boosters are the first stage. That's another difference between Ariane 5 and Soyuz. The Ariane 5 boosters and the lower composite are lit roughly together with 7 seconds difference. The main engine on Ariane is lit and checked for 7 seconds before the order is given to light the boosters. Here, the boosters, produced in Samara, provide 84 tons of thrust, or 336 tons of thrust in all. They'll burn for 118 seconds, 2 minutes, and then they're separated. We will get the confirmation of this event and other events in just a moment. The 4 Soyuz boosters have another name, as do all the Soyuz stages. Block B, V, G, D, 1 letter for each booster. They're assembled around the central core, which is the second stage. You'll be able to see that better in just a moment when we have a computer animation. They weigh 45 tons each at liftoff. Total mass of the first stage, 178 tons. And their engines run on liquid oxygen and kerosene, the same propellants used in each of the 3 lower stages. 4 boosters assembled around the central core, which is also called the second stage. They're tapered cylinders, and the oxidizer tank is in the tapered part, in the narrow part, and the kerosene tank in the cylindrical part. Flight controls carried out by fins, 1 on each booster. You'll be able to see that better when we show our computer animation of booster separation, which should have come at about just under 2 minutes. And there we have confirmation of the booster separation. You can see what that looks like. You see the tapered part. Now the core stage, the second stage, burning. Similar in construction to the boosters. Ignition of this stage occurred on the launch pad, as you saw. You see the trucks coming into the launch pad, ready to clean up and ready for the next flight. Stage will burn for about 4 minutes, also called Block A. Has a mass at liftoff of 100 tons, liquid oxygen and kerosene again. Stage produced by TS SKP Progress, like the boosters in Samara. The ignition of the second stage was, as you saw, all is nominal, all is proceeding as planned on board. The ignition, as you saw, came as at the intermediate level of thrust on the launch pad, 20 seconds before liftoff. You saw those engines start to burn. They do that on the pad. Better to check their health on the pad than when they're flying in space, as Ariane 5, of course, does the same. Coming up on separation of the second stage in just about a minute. One particularity of the Soyuz program is that whereas with Ariane, we separate the lower stage before igniting the upper stage, Soyuz does just the opposite. The third stage is ignited 2 seconds before separation of the lower stage, the second stage. And the lower part of the third stage, called the skirt, is used to channel the flux of this third stage motor ignition down towards the stage below, where it rebounds, goes back up, which gives an added thrust, assisting the separation. And the third stage skirt is separated about 30 seconds later. All is proceeding perfectly on board. The boosters have separated. The core stage, the second stage, is burning. separation of the second stage due in about 15 seconds. 10 seconds later will be the separation of the fairing. The Soyuz and Frigate will be tracked by ground stations tonight, of course. Ground stations are designed to be able to receive radar and telemetry sent down by the launcher to follow her path at all times. Tonight, Russian ground tracking stations are following the mission. There's also a ground station in Belgium at Osagel, which is following the flight trajectory. Both, I think, Russian and Osagel stations should see satellite separation. And there's the confirmation of the separation of the second stage. And we should have momentarily the confirmation of the fairing. Now we've just had that. You see how that works. It's two halves of the fairing, two half shells, providing acoustic protection for the payloads during liftoff. That's like Ariane 5. As you see, the satellites exposed to the elements there. Fairing weighs 1,700 kilos, 1 ton 7. Measures 4.1 meters in diameter, 11.4 meters long. Good for a wide range of missions. Separated about 160 kilometers up. There's also another reason why we jettison it now is because the launcher is out of the Earth's atmosphere at over 100 kilometers, and the fairing protecting the passengers from shocks and heat fluxes which occur in the Earth's atmosphere. Once above that limit of 100 kilometers, we don't need it anymore. Also, it's dead weight now. We can get rid of the 1.7 tons. The third stage, burning now, after extinction of the second stage and separation of the second stage. Ignition occurs 2 seconds before shutdown of the central core stage or the second stage engine. Third stage 2, powered by liquid oxygen and kerosene. However, no liquid nitrogen or hydrogen peroxide as you have in the lower stages. Another word on Globalstar, while we're in the third stage burn. The Globalstar 2 missions have been much the same as tonight. The October 2010 mission, for example, lifted off at 11:10 p.m. Baikonur. Tonight it was 11:09. The satellites were separated then at 1 hour 38 minutes and 1 hour 40 minutes after liftoff, almost identical to tonight. And following the two ignitions of the Frigate main engine, the Frigate was deorbited after the satellite. The July mission, much the same. We're in the third stage burn. And third stage, and everything is functioning normally on board, coming up on 7.5 minutes into the flight. In just about another minute, the third stage will separate. That should be at about 200 kilometers up, and we'll be into the first burn of the Frigate stage. The Frigate will have 3 burns tonight. The first will move the upper stage into a transfer orbit. The burn will last about 4 minutes. And then she'll go into a barbecue, as they call barbecue mode, where she's turning on herself, coasting. And then that's about 50 minutes. And then she'll have a second burn to put her into the satellite separation orbit. And then shortly after, we should have separation of the satellites. And the third burn will be her deorbit burn. That burn to deorbit the vehicle comes over Russia, and after she will re-enter the atmosphere when she has flown over New Zealand. Coming up on separation of the third stage, Frigate, which is burning now, which is burning shortly, I should say, is an autonomous flexible upper stage, a relatively recent addition like the powered third stage and the upgraded Soyuz. It was designed to operate actually as an orbiter, and it's considered part of the payload. What advantages does the new Frigate bring? This is actually the European part of the launcher, if you will. The first 3 stages are the Russian part. It extends the capacity offered by the first 3 lower stages to provide access to all orbits. Low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, sun-synchronous orbit, geostationary transfer orbit, of course. It's independent from the lower stages. Confirmation of the third stage flame out and separation, and there you have the Frigate upper stage with the satellites, all that's left of the composite. Frigate, as we were saying, can be reignited 20 times in flight, which means it can carry out very complex missions. It'll burn 3 times tonight. Now we're waiting for confirmation of the ignition of the first frigate with its mass of 6.3 tons. We're going to go to a launch replay first while we're waiting for the confirmation of the burn, and you can watch those very fine shots that happened some moments ago. So you saw those shots that took place just about 10 minutes ago. Excuse me. We're still waiting for confirmation of the first ignition. We will be back with you in about an hour and a half for rest of the mission. The first part is over. Stay warm. We'll see you then. Back to the mission. For the good news, Soyuz has delivered the 6 Globalstar 2 satellites. Joshua Jample here again. Shortly after we left you, at the end of the first part of the mission and the broadcast, we had confirmation of the first frigate burn, the first upper stage burn, and all operations since then have been performed perfectly, ever since. At 1809 Paris time, 21:09 Moscow, nearly 2 hours ago, Soyuz lifted off from pad 6 here in Baikonur, and we're going to go to another replay of that. In case you didn't see it, in case you missed it, you can see it for the first time. Soyuz lifting off on her latest mission. That, of course, at 11:09 p.m. Baikonur time. Afterward, Frigate's first burn, over an hour and a half ago now, was over Russia. Then during the break, when we left you, as she was coasting, she toured the globe and had a second burn over the southern tip of South America and separated the satellites over Europe. We're going to go to the speeches now. You'll be hearing first from Jean-Yves Le Gall, also from Anthony Navarre from Globalstar. The next voice you hear will be that of Jean-Yves Le Gall.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as you saw, the 6 Globalstar 2 satellites are now in orbit, and my friend Tony Navarra just gave me confirmation that the ground control station just confirmed the separation and the good health of the 6 satellites. And I am very, very proud to share this new success with you, because this demonstrates once again that Soyuz, the Frigate, the dispenser, and the satellites are the right choice to launch the Globalstar 2 constellation. Tonight it was the 11th launch that StarSem and Arianespace performed for Globalstar, and it's a very great achievement. I want to thank Globalstar for this confidence. It was also the 24th launch of StarSem, but almost half of the launches that we performed here have been performed for Globalstar. And this is a very nice way to complete the year 2011, because we had a total of 4 Soyuz launches this year, 2 from Baikonur for Globalstar and 2 from French Guiana. So once again, thank you very much to Globalstar. We are already preparing the 12th launch, which will occur next year. And once again, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denis?
Jean-Yves, thank you very much. I cannot express my gratitude enough for all of the hard work that's been done by your team, StarSem, Arianespace, and of course all of your team's excellent work to make certain these satellites in this launch were flawlessly placed exactly where we needed them so that our ground stations could find them on the very first pass. It's amazing that we can find 6 satellites within 30 minutes of them being placed into space. And only Arianespace has done that so well over all the years that we've worked together. So Jean-Yves, thank you very much.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New
Thank
Year.
you.
Well, a nice testimonial there from Anthony.
Thank you very much.
Mazzara.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we close out the year. 2011 was a very good year, as the song says. 5 Ariane 5 launches, 4 of them double launches. We're going to say goodbye to you over a clip recapping 2011. 4 double launches from French Guiana, 1 ATV, and 2 Soyuz launches with 8 satellites. 20 Soyuz, 20 satellite launched by Soyuz from Baikonur and French Guiana combined. That makes 1,784 missions for the legendary Soyuz. Tonight all went according to plan. Work beginning now at other places around the world, satellite control centers who are going to monitor the satellite's first maneuvers, also for the Frigate, which will be entering the Earth's atmosphere shortly. So we'll say goodbye. The big news here from Baikonur, where Soyuz has once again delivered on her final Arianespace launch of the year. 6 new Globalstars are beginning their lives. The next launch in the end of January, Vega in French Guiana. That'll be another first. You don't want to miss it. First Ariane 5 of 2012, early March, the 3rd ATV. We'll be there. We hope you will be too. Until then, on behalf of everybody here at Baikonur, Joshua Jampel saying we hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time. Have a safe and a happy new year.